Hey, what's going on everyone? Gamer Geek here, and welcome back to another wonderful update video for my CW Flash fan game. Today's video is going to be a little different from my other videos. I decided to do it a little less formal, a little less scripted. That's not to say that this video is just going to be random improv for 10 to 12 minutes. It's obviously still scripted to an extent, but I wanted this to be a little more casual. Also, I'm just coming off of a bender of slamming my head into a brick wall over something I was dealing with in the Flash game, and I didn't want to dedicate a ton of brain power to scripting this video, but we'll get more into that in a second. Just to cover the usual stuff before we get into the update, subscribe if you haven't already, and you absolutely should because it means you're a cool person who does cool things. In the video today, we'll be covering some of the things I'm working on for the tutorial section of the game, specifically open world game mechanics for you to interact with while you run around the city. Once I'm done with the tutorial section, as I've said in the past, I'll be releasing the completed early section of the game for people to play and get their hands on. So let's get into it and talk about some of the things that made me question my sanity for the past 2 months. For this update, I had to come up with puzzles and mechanics that the player could interact with outside of the main story of the game. Just a few repetitive tasks for various in-game loots to reward the player as they work towards completing every available puzzle. Think your discoverable backpacks in Spider-Man or the Riddler trophies in the Arkham games. I wanted to also add my random crime mechanic to this update as part of the video, but I didn't get the system working properly in time. I'll probably throw it into my next video as a little segment tacked on there once I get it working. But the first thing I came up with to add as an open world gimmick for this game was a trophy system like the Riddler trophies I had just mentioned from the Arkham series. In my previous betas I had released for those who hadn't played them, I had a minigame in it where the players searched Central City for a little randomly spawned present left by the Trickster. It was fun, and I wanted to bring that back in a sense now with Trickster trophies rather than little wrapped presents as the collectible. To make the actual trophy item, I found a 3D model of a random trophy online. I think it was like a humanitarian award or something, ironically enough, and then I added a little chattery teeth model on top. Super easy, and now we have our little Trickster trophy item. The puzzles for each trophy will have to be custom made and added to Central City, which I can show a demonstration of in my next video, but they won't be anything absurdly difficult to figure out. The designs I have for puzzles involve things like pressing multiple buttons before a timer counts down, or destroying a generator that's powering a barrier blocking one. The hardest part about the trophy system is supposed to just be finding the different trophies. I also added a simple counter tied into the game instance so that the game can track how many trophies you found, with a reward given to the player when you've collected a certain number of trophies. I don't have all the rewards implemented yet, but the final unlockable reward for the trophies will be a special costume for Wally that fans of the Flash comics will definitely recognize. It's a surprise, so you have to play the game later and find out what it is. But the trophy system wasn't super difficult to add or anything. I already know what you're all thinking. You're waiting to hear about the annoyingly stupid things I was dealing with while working on this game. I posted that update on Discord too, talking about everything going wrong, so you're probably wondering what the hell happened. Well, I'll get to those PTSD flashbacks in a second. Moving on to Destructible generators, which was the next thing I added as an open world mechanic. One of the ideas for a Trickster trophy puzzle that I just mentioned was destroying a generator to open some kind of barrier. Well, I liked it so much, I decided to use it as its own standalone mechanic as well. I imported a 3D model I found for a generator, edited the texture so that it would be colored red, just so it would stand out and the player could recognize it at a glance. Now, how you are to interact with these generators has gone through several revisions. At first, I had the player just hold A or X or whatever you have controller-wise to interact with the generator, and Kid Flash would destroy it once your little charging meter was filled completely. It worked fine, I guess, but I thought it was kind of boring and needed to be spiced up a bit. I mean, there will be theoretically around 100 of these things floating around Central City, and while just holding a button for 5 seconds doesn't seem like such a big deal, it would get so tedious to have to do it every time. That's 500 seconds in total for those counting. 500 precious seconds that you could be doing something else in the Flash game. Not very exciting 500 seconds. So I thought I should turn the generators into like a mini game, maybe a QuickTime event or something, right? That would be exciting. So I added a QuickTime event having a series of buttons appear on the screen that you had to hit in order before Kid Flash destroyed the generator. But after I added it, and only after I spent my time adding it, I realized I created the exact same problem, just slightly flashier, no pun intended. Now, every Destructible generator still eats up your playtime, it still takes you out of the story, only it takes even longer to interact with. Ah! So frustrating. The problem with designing a game is you want everything to be interesting and exciting. You want the player to be engaged, but you can't have your player engaged 100% of the time. It's not going to happen. And you'll drive yourself crazy constantly going over things like I was doing to push the envelope and make everything as engaging and as exciting as possible. There will inevitably be things that will get repetitive, especially in an open world game like this. No one was thrilled every time they found a Riddler trophy unless it was the last one you needed. For most people, it felt like at a certain point you were just looking for the things and praying to get it over with so you could move on with your life. So I decided simpler was probably better and just made it a simple button push to interact with the generators. Kid Flash plays a cool animation, destroys it, and the generator has a little smoking particle effect to show it was destroyed. This is where I ran into a problem. See, I wanted the generators to have a particle effect like electricity or something before you interact with them just to show that they haven't been destroyed yet. So I added a particle sim for the static to be sparking out of the base of the generator, and it worked perfectly. For like a week. No, seriously, a week went by where nothing was wrong, and I was actually working on something completely unrelated, and then I randomly started getting error messages out of my output log. I assumed it was from the thing I was currently working on, but no, not quite. It was the electricity particle effect. Like a goddamn sleeper agent, this particle effect waited for its Winter Soldier moment to come alive and stop working. The error message I was getting was telling me the simulation was causing CPU issues while running the game, and to be clear, this was in the basic third-person world in Unreal Engine where I go to test things before adding them to Central City, so it wasn't even in like a level being overcrowded with assets or anything to create this problem. I opened the actual Niagara file for the simulation to see if I could fix it, and I did manage to resolve the issue, just a few clicks, and it said the errors were fixed. That was until I started the game again to test it. As soon as I hit play, constant barrage of errors in my output log about CPU issues. I spent too much time trying to figure out how to fix it, admittedly more than I should have, but you have to understand where I was coming from. It was literally working without issue just a few days prior, and it irritated me to no end, just enough to keep me invested trying to fix it. But after a while of working on it, I gave up. I just removed the particle effect altogether. It just wasn't worth the time and effort keeping it in the game. So that was one headache down, but how about another one? You want to hear about how I suffered through another point in development? If you answered out loud to that question, don't do that. But anyway, after moving on from the Destructible generators, I decided to add phasing into the game. For those who have been watching for a while, you know I've been reluctant to add phasing into the game because I didn't want to have to worry about adding full interiors to every building that you run through while phasing. But then I thought about all the places I could start hiding collectibles and Trickster trophies and decided to throw it in anyway, but in a limited capacity to use as an open world mechanic to hunt for items. Throughout Central City, I'll be adding these sort of bank vault-like doors that are locking various warehouses and shady buildings lurking around. When you find one of these doors, you can interact with it to have Kid Flash play a fun animation where he starts vibrating and walks forward, phasing through the door to the other side. It's neat how I got it working too. I put 2 invisible markers on either side of the door that automatically set a target location for the player depending on what side of the door you approach from. When you interact with the door, Kid Flash snaps to the starting position and plays a timeline that moves him forward to that target location. The door's collision turns off, allowing him to pass through, and turns back on after you've passed. It worked great and it was really cool to see. I need to clean up the animation of passing through the door because it isn't lined up super perfectly. I have to smooth it out a little bit, but it works well for what it is. But then I ran into a problem, because of course I did. When I was creating the phasable doors, I had only added the phasing bit to one side of the door, just to test it and make sure it worked. Kid Flash could phase in, but not back the other way yet. Once the initial side was working, I just added the same logic to the other side of the door, and I thought that would just work the same. Newsflash, again no pun intended, it didn't work the same. It didn't. Instead, once the other side of the door was added to the logic, Kid Flash would get stuck, phasing back and forth, either endlessly or would stop at his starting position for some reason. I thought it might have to do with something in the timeline that moves Kid Flash around, or maybe the collision from the door was turning on too quickly or something and it would push him back and forth to his starting positions. But no, it was the markers updating his target position for the phasing mechanic too quickly. After more time than it should have taken to figure that out, I realized that the markers were updating his target location as he was moving through the door, causing it to update the timeline and change where he was moving to every time he crossed the door. He would go through, it would immediately update his target position to go back the other way, and then vice versa. Once I figured that out, the fix was really easy. Rather than having the markers update the target location immediately for the player, I added a gate that checks if the player is already moving through the door and it blocks the target location from updating until the timeline is finished. Was it a simple fix? Entirely so. Did it take me too long to figure that out to fix it? Yeah, a little bit. But that wasn't even the worst of it. No, not even close. See, I had the oh so brilliant idea after finishing the phasable doors to add in another type of generator. The Flash characters all use and generate lightning, right? So I thought it'd be really cool to have to power a generator to open a door or something. Maybe even use a chargeable generator in more trophy puzzles. I don't know. The more options for gimmicks in the open world, the more content you guys have to play with, right? So I thought, what the hell, why not? And got to work. I made the chargeable generators green to differentiate them from the destructible ones, and I added the same kind of logic to them. I also added a very cool animation of Kid Flash like zapping them with arcs of electricity streaming from his hands. Very cool. There's even a little camera shake to add some emphasis to it. All that was cool and stuff, and I was ready to record some footage of it, show it off in a video. Well, that didn't end up happening, and this is what I was talking about on my post in Discord if you saw it. I don't even remember why I was testing with multiple generators in the level. I honestly couldn't say, but for some reason I ran into a huge issue. The generators wouldn't work. Well, that's not entirely accurate. One generator would work. Then the rest wouldn't react to the player, not even a little. Isn't that something? Now why, I hear you asking, would only one work? Well, the answer is pretty simple. I don't know. Yeah, I have no clue why this was happening, but let me explain what was so frustrating about this and why it almost led me to embracing a villain arc as Reverse Geek.
My goals are beyond your understanding.
No, but okay, seriously though, when you create an actor in Unreal Engine, unless it's tied to a controller of some kind or internal logic and variables are tied to your game instance or something, said actor should work independently from other instances of that same actor, right? If you Google it, the internet and documentation will both tell you the same thing. When I drag multiple copies of the same non-player actor into the world, they shouldn't communicate with each other unless they're told to. Each instance of the actor is supposed to be independent from each other. Meaning if I interact with one generator I place in the level, only that generator I interact with should react. There's no logic in the generators that reference multiple copies, like get all actors a class kind of reference. None of that. The variables for checking if the generator is charged or not wasn't shared through a game instance or anything. Yet for some reason, when one generator was charged, all of them turned off and couldn't be interacted with. That's not to say they were all showing that they were charged, which is the really weird part. At first I thought charging one of them charged all of them, but that's not what was happening. I added a branch into the code to display a message showing whether or not the generators were charged when you interact with them. But then when I tested it, none of the generators would be charged outside of the initial one. They still couldn't be interacted with though. So now I was confused and didn't know where to go with it. I figured the actors must be sharing a variable somehow or referencing each other when you attempt to interact with them, and I took to the internet to try and figure out why. Well, my Googling turned up, we'll say less than satisfactory results to put it in a way that won't demonetize me. Believe me, if I could say what I really wanted to say about Unreal Engine and these stupid ass generators, I'm pretty sure Epic Games would ban me from Unreal somehow. Because it was so frustrating searching tons of documentation and Unreal forums to find out why my actors were somehow sharing variables across multiple instances without being told to, and finding out, oh, that actually doesn't do that. Gee, thanks. So the best guess I had was that the check if the generator is already charged or not is being called and somehow referencing already charged generators in the level. Somehow. But I couldn't figure out how or why it was doing that. To try and fix it, I made every variable a self-reference for the generators, made the variables editable to see if that helped. I tried a few other things, nothing worked. The closest I got was 2 generators working before it stopped letting me interact with them. Awesome. So I have generators not working because they somehow must be referencing each other when being checked if they're charged or not, despite no game logic telling them to. And I have the internet telling me that that can't actually happen even though it's currently happening. I was at a loss. Like, where do you even start with fixing that? This is apparently a problem that doesn't exist, according to the internet, so I had no clue what to do. I eventually came up with a pretty good fix that does actually work after experimenting with it for hours. I felt like putting my head through a wall by the end of it, but the fix was a weird little on-off switch in the generators that turns their game logic off. Like, no logic running at all. The generators might as well be static meshes with no logic attached. Only when the player goes to interact with them does the logic turn on and let you charge it, and then turn right the hell back off. Turning the logic for the generators off like that means the variables inside can't be referenced anymore. And when you know it, suddenly all of them work perfectly. Finally! It took so long, but we finally made it. Take that, internet, I created a problem that doesn't exist somehow, but also made a solve for it too. Booyah! Now, as good as a fix as it is, I'm not proud of it, because it shouldn't have been necessary to begin with. Not a smart man for figuring that out, I'm just a desperate one who wanted that shit to be over with. But with that out of the way, I was finally done and able to record this video properly. Each of the things I mentioned in this video will have a small variety of designs to them in the final game. The generators will come in all shapes and sizes, some mounted to the wall, some big transformers like you see in the video here. The phasable doors will have some variety to them as well. I can also combine these different open world elements as well as a few others to make a pretty good spread of puzzles throughout Central City for you to solve. Doors tied to generators, trophies and things hidden behind phasable doors, secret encounters and collectibles hidden behind things, so on and so forth. One thing I didn't show in this video but is definitely added is discoverable suits for Kid Flash. Most of them will be from the show, but a few will be original designs from yours truly. I just didn't show them because I didn't want to spoil the surprise of what you could find. But that's all I have for you guys in today's video. I hope you all enjoyed the rant about my frustrations these past few weeks with development. I know this was a bit of a small update, but stay tuned for the next one where I'll be touching on combat and stuff. It's going to be a bigger update video with much more exciting mechanics to look at, so be excited for that. If you like this video and my suffering, well, I appreciate it, and be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Thanks everyone, and I'll see you all in the next one.